So we're still having audio issues, but there's a tagline ribbon running across to let the audience know to call in so we can continue our planning for the top three. Okay. Thank you, Cynthia. We have a hard stop at 9 p.m. tonight. I want everyone to recognize that time is everyone's enemy. So let's be mindful when we're talking to be mindful that we have a hard stop at 9, but let's get a lot accomplished tonight, please. Now, with that said, turn it over to our town manager, Tom Coulter. Take it away, Tom.
Yeah.
Sure.
Excuse me, Mr. Coulter.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the audio is working on TV. They're going to take that announcement now.
That's great news. Thank you, Madam Chair. By way of starting my remarks, I'd like all of you to join me in congratulating Mr. McChristie for his recent marriage last week. Joe? I'm sorry, ladies, one eligible bachelor off the market. Congratulations, Joe. And I also want to thank all of you department heads for giving us your time these 2 evenings on Tuesday night. I know this is your time to recharge after a 9-month sprint from September through May, and so we appreciate you being here. And the reason we want to be here is the Select Board has made it clear that we don't make plans in a vacuum. We like to get input from staff. That's what this is all about. And that most especially, once the Select Board, as our policymakers, make a decision on what our top 3 priorities are out of the 20 I've presented, we all need to speak up and talk very openly about what barriers may be getting in the way of us accomplishing those top 3 strategic objectives. So that's what the second evening is about. What I'm going to talk about first, only by way of very quick review, is what fiscal 23 brought to the town because of the hard work, the dedication of this staff, and the support of this Select Board. When I arrived December 12th, I was immediately met at the door by Mr. Tisdale, who had the most professional summary of major challenges facing the town. And as an interim, he didn't feel, and I would agree with him, that the timing was right for him to make such impactful changes in a period where he was interim. But when I showed up, he gave me a report that was so detailed and so magnificent, it saved me 30 to 60 to 90 days of discovery and analysis. So I'm going to run through a few of those accomplishments, which were objectives that the senior staff met and wrote down the first week of January. And they said, there were 7 of us, that we need to accomplish these objectives if we're going to be successful in the rest of fiscal 23 and into 24. So it was a working session in my office. We put it on that board, or a whiteboard like that, and it remained there until last Friday, when we erased them and we put together our 24 objectives. So let me first define what an objective means to me. A lot of people have goals. They typically happen on New Year's Eve, right? And they don't quite often last the whole year. You know, with me, it's been, lose 10 pounds, I gain 7. So they're just not, a goal is not something that often gets accomplished. An objective is something we choose to measure ourselves on. And that objective is supported by a very detailed action plan. In order to achieve these objectives, we must do these tasks by this timeline. And if we do these tasks by this timeline, the likelihood has been increased that we will achieve that objective. So the first week of January, we had our own session. We determined the 20 objectives that were critical to us to achieve through the remainder of fiscal 23. That was on a Friday. That Sunday morning, we got rained on. This building suffered almost $2 million worth of damage. Every single person in this building was displaced. People had the entire contents on top of their desks wiped out. I knew that day and into the following week that we had an extraordinary team here. No one complained. Nobody went home. Nobody said, I can't work under these conditions with blowers blowing 3 inches of water on this floor, their office stored in the hallway, all their paperwork scattered all over the place. Everybody did their jobs. So when the senior staff met the second week, it was suggested that we modify our expectations and objectives for the remaining of fiscal year 23. And by unanimous consent, we decided we're not modifying anything. So as you look at that handout, it summarized what those 20 objectives were on that day. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read them to you. I'm just going to go through a couple top-of-mind examples. The first objective was to put this building back together. And I can tell you that weekend that the damage was caused, more damage could have happened but for the involvement of the fire chief and our director of DPW. We had contractors here by the end of the day Sunday. The water was gone by midnight Sunday night. We started the repairs first thing Monday morning. We then were faced with some very significant challenges. We knew that our health care fund was going to be insolvent by July 1st. The board was aware of it. The board made me aware of it. They made it my top priority. From the leadership of Dee and Tracy and our consultant Gallagher, we quickly determined what the impact is, what changes needed to be done under the law, and what our options were, either to move to the GIC or enact 2023D. 21 through 23, and that we needed unanimous consent from all 8 unions in order to do that. Gallagher said that would take about a year, and it was done in 45 days. Pardon me, all 13 unions, including the schools. Thank you. I forgot the schools. Thanks, Dee. That was a magnificent feat, led by Dee, led by Tracy, meeting with unions and union leaders to get their consent. And we did not go to the GIC. We didn't even have to go to 23 D, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it is. D's an expert in the categories. We negotiated an agreement for a significant increase. And as additional Chapter 70 money came in, the schools worked collaboratively with us, and we were able to pay the town's portion of approximately $2 million with a very significant rate increase that I have not received a complaint from a single employee, and only one union regrets that they did that. So our problem with healthcare is solved. And it's due to the efforts of the people in this room explaining it to their employees and to our Human Resource Department for taking the lead. So think about it. We've got a building under siege. We've got a healthcare program that's about to be insolvent. And then we discovered it was in Mark's report, $3 million in structural deficits in water, sewer, and solid waste. We immediately conducted public hearings. The board has given me very clear guidelines to engage the community, share the facts, collaborate on solutions. The water and sewer rate hearings came and went. We've closed the structural deficit. They will be solvent this year. We're in the process of doing the solid waste rate adjustment. We had a public information session on April 13th. We had a rate hearing followed by a second rate hearing. We got extraordinary input from the community. We've listened to every bit of that input, and we're making a recommendation a week from tonight to the board to implement a program that'll take effect October 1st. And anyone who participated from the community in those rate hearings will be very pleased with the program. It reflects very closely their recommendations, their wishes, and their desires. And so very, very happy about that. As we move Stoughton forward in fiscal 23, there was a debate between the police chief and the fire chief on whether we should merge with Holbrook Regional 911. I refereed, and I did referee, that debate, and that decision is an operational decision, so it falls at my feet. And we are having Regional 911 come in, I think it's August 1st, I'll get the date to everybody, to give a technical presentation on what that means. But what we've done is helped everybody understand the facts. What was presented leading up to that was misleading. The fact is the town of Stoughton residents deserve the best EMS technology available in the world today. By joining Regional 911, the state will invest between $5 and $10 million, putting that technology into Stoughton's hands, into our new fire station, into our existing police station. We'll also get approximately $600,000 to $700,000 in savings per year because our dispatchers will go over to Holbrook 911. They will take Stoughton calls. They will receive pay increases. They'll receive additional benefits and larger contributions on their health insurance than they have right now. So I want to dispel the rumor that they're not being treated fairly. They're getting a bigger benefit than anyone else who's staying here. So we're going to reach out to the community and do an information session so that we can separate facts from fiction. And we'll take input. We're not looking for a vote, but we will take input, and we'll share good information. That leads us to other issues that we had to face in FY23. Policies, procedures, organization structure, job descriptions, all completed or at least begun the process in FY23. The other two I'd like to mention from FY23 is we put together a 4-year capital plan and a 2023 infrastructure plan. For the first time in years, town meeting members invested in our underground infrastructure. See, failure to do that puts us even closer and closer and closer to a third world town. With only limited money in our reserve fund, if we had a catastrophic failure of water, underground storage, we wouldn't have had the resources or the insurance coverage to fix or address those problems. Town meeting members, in their wisdom, supported the plan we presented, and we're this spring engaging in one of the largest public works investment, which will address close to 25% of our major problems. It'll have to be a multi-year commitment. But because town meeting did what town meeting did, we're well on our way. The last two things I want to talk about is our police department. And I know Donna has no problem me saying this. This police department suffered some terrible public relations due to the behavior of several individuals who are no longer with us and will soon be decertified as police officers. But that created a huge brand problem for this town. I am very proud to say that Donna has met that challenge. We've been away on seminars together with our command staff. We meet for dinner with our command staff. The command staff is now part of Donna's team. They're all on board. They're all committed to changing the brand and the reputation of the Stoughton Police Department. We settled the lawsuits that directly involve the town within the police department. We've built a new website, and we continue to improve it as we sit here today. And the new website is purely to communicate directly with real content, with real-time communication with our public. And again, I'm not going to read these two, just a few more. We're renegotiating the SMAC contract. From a place of adversity and unrest and confusion, we last week agreed to a new contract with SMAC that needs to be certified and approved by our select board and by the SMAC board. And we hope to meet in the next week or two to do that and get going. I think that's all I want to say on 2023. I'm going to talk about organic purchasing in a minute. I think that's it. Last one I'll talk about is professional development in 2023. Municipalities are not known for their investment in professional development. As anyone on the department heads or staff in this town will tell you, professional development is a staple of my core beliefs. Everybody has got a responsibility, regardless of what position they're in, to improve their skill set, to improve their management capabilities, to improve their technical capabilities, improve their leadership style. So we focused heavily in the past on training within the finance department, training within the HR department, and I can tell you that in both departments we're seeing material improvements in those areas. The last thing I want to talk about, I think I said that once already, is in 2023, as we were doing the solid waste plan, we committed to a beautification standard for the town of Stoughton. Now let me tell you what that means. We're going to clean up the trash. People who throw trash around, people from out of town who bring their rubbish and their solid waste to Stoughton are going to be tracked down by a full-time inspector and by law enforcement, and they're going to be prosecuted. I hope they're listening right now. Stoughton is a wonderful place to live, but it's not being cared for the way it should be cared for, the way our taxpayers have a right to have it be cared for. So that is a major, I would say one of the top 2 priorities for the new year as we talk about the new year requirements, is we are going to beautify Stoughton. One last thing I would say about 23 is we made a commitment, and the board took a vote, to invest in the train station as a community center. Under Pam's leadership, we did a community survey. We know exactly what the citizens of Stoughton want at that community center. We got our first $200,000 from the CPC. We got $100,000 in an earmark, assuming the budget's passed at the state level. And Pam has submitted an A-plus presentation for an $800,000 grant from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Thank you so much, Pam. That's what I love about Pam. That gets us to $1 million. It's going to take $3 million to put that facility into a Class A facility. We've got an architect who's guiding us along the way. So all we're going to do with the money we receive is make it weather-tight and beautify the outside. That means the roof is in great shape. We're going to replace windows. We're going to replace the 43-year-old furnace. We're going to make it tight so that we can't do any more damage to the building. After we raise $2 million through public-private partnerships through the town, we will then reach out to the CPC again. We'll reach out to people who will invest in Stoughton on the private sector, and we will reach out to the Commonwealth again to get to $3.5 million. And as you'll see, our goal for fiscal year 24 is to have our first event in that building. But not for the leadership of Select Board Member Joe McChristie, we wouldn't even be having this discussion. Joe raised the issue. He drove the process. He's over there every day. He's working with Paul every day. I am very certain within a year we'll have our first event there. Within 2 years we'll have a facility that we will be so proud of as a community, and we'll have social events there many, many, many nights of the week, forever and ever, for generations to join. Now, if you turn the page, you'll see that, so I would call these the staff accomplishments, what we just reviewed for fiscal 23, or the successes. As you look at fiscal 24, this is what we're looking for your input on and for your support on. The first one is happening on Fran's watch, our procurement manager. We intend to do centralized purchasing. Now, no municipality that I'm aware of, none of the 6 I represent in the legislature, are doing this. If you've ever been in the private sector, this is a best practice. It's a common practice. In municipalities, it's unheard of. We are going to have a full-time purchasing manager that's going to personally manage the top 30 to 40 vendors that the town employs. I'm talking about salt for DPW, gasoline and diesel for DPW, prices that are negotiable, WB Mason. And our goal, if that's $30 million in business, is to, through relationships, through negotiation, through contract management, save 10%. Just imagine if we saved 10% from those vendors just by asking. We tested this. Fran went out and shopped our diesel prices and our gas prices. We were in the state contract for that. And we've dropped How much per gallon for next year?
$2.90 for diesel and for...
$2.78.
$2.70.
$2.70. You can't find that price anywhere at any retail gas station right now. Fran locked it in for 2 years, I believe, 1 year. If we can do that with our top 30 vendors, that's real cash that goes right to our bottom line that we can use for capital investments, we can use to pay employees market rate. And why is that important? We're soon to be down 12 police officers in the police department. We did a civil service search. We got one applicant. We got one applicant, or one finalist that qualified, because we don't pay enough. Now, I know there's going to be people telling me that's a stupid. You guys pay too much. The reality is the proof is in the recruitment process. If we can't get people to say, I do, then we're going to have serious problems in police and fire and in management of the town. So we need to find creative ways to make money by saving money. Second objective, comprehensive financial policy. Bill, myself, Dave Laurie from the Finance Committee are working very closely on this. We're going to document our financial policies, our financial standard operating procedures, and our financial strategy. Our financial strategy would say that we must maintain a minimum of 20% in reserves. It'll say something like how we're going to manage debt, at what level. We're going to deal with the financial policy draft at a financial summit that Bill is conducting in September. That includes the Finance Committee, the Select Board, the School Committee, and we're all going to work collaboratively for an 8-hour day to come up with a policy that we can build consensus on. Net zero FTEs. It's mine and Mark and Bill's goal to go into fiscal 24 in a budgeting process where we commit to no more than a 2.5% increase, and that we challenge the administration, the school system to do the same. We have no control over that. It'll just be a friendly challenge. One of the ways we do that is to hold FTEs, full-time employee equivalents, at current levels. Don't increase it. Now that means we have to figure out how to do more with less. And it's going to be difficult. But if we don't try, we'll never achieve it. Next is the stabilization fund. It's always been my goal, in anywhere I've been, whether it was on the Finance Committee in Kingston, as the town administrator, on the School Committee in Kingston, or on the legislature, is to manage our money prudently. That starts with having reserves in our account that we can count on when we have a severe rainy day. Right now, we're well below 20%. We could lose our bond rating, and if it weren't for the conference call Bill facilitated with the bond agency that Mark, myself, Bill, Mary Jane participated in, they called out the subsidies that we were giving to support water and sewer. They called out a fee-for-service department like sanitation, rubbish. They called out that we're using over $2 million in free cash to balance our budget. We assured them we will address and fix all of those things in our FY24 budget. Right now, the town has a 7-year plan to extinguish the use of free cash in its operating budget. That is bad fiscal policy. So it's this team's objective to extinguish the use of free cash in the FY25 budget. 1 year, not 7. It will be painful, but it can be done. It's one of our major objectives. Policy manual. For an organization that's been around since the late 1700s, we don't have a meaningful operational policy manual. So it's one of our primary goals to develop an operations manual for general day-to-day policies. I was talking to Paul Jaffoon today. He said, how about no smoking in trucks? That's a good place to start, right? How about no speeding? How about no parking in front of a gin mill? Basic stuff. How about no weapons inside municipal buildings? Seems like common sense, right? We can't hold anybody accountable for that behavior because we don't have a policy that says that's bad behavior. So we got a lot of work to do. How do you cut a purchase order? How do you approve a payable? If we don't have a very simple, that I can understand, standard operating procedure, then it takes too long to do simple tasks, and that's what Bill and I are working on next year. We're going to fix those things. Utilization equipment. Mr. Carrera and I spent 5 hours Saturday touching every piece of equipment, with Paul's support, of course, touching every piece of equipment at the DPW last Saturday. We came up with 20 pieces of equipment that can be sold or disposed of, that we no longer register, we no longer use, and we will no longer have to spend $3,300 a month to insure. And we're not going to buy any new equipment without retiring old equipment. You think about it for a moment. Think about this just for a moment. At $3,300 a piece of equipment, and there's 23 pieces of equipment, I'm sure somebody can do that math faster than me. If we owned that business, would we be paying that money? No. And we're going to apply business principles to how we spend taxpayer money. It's the responsible thing to do. We've got 2 pool vehicles, and we need them all, but have been sitting because they've been broken for a long time. They're going to go away. We're just not going to spend good money on old, tired equipment. And thanks to Scott and Paul's help, and Matt, the head mechanic over there, or a team mechanic over there, we now have identified we're having a September auction. All of those will come off the rolls. They won't be insured. They won't be registered. They won't be sitting there further plummeting in value every day that they sit there and in the sun and in the weather. And I know people criticize me. They say, Tom, this is not a business. Guess what? We owe it to taxpayers to run every one of our departments like it's our money. And that's one of my primary objectives for this first year. Number 7, Paula, our treasurer, is as committed as I am to tax title in 2024. We've got millions of dollars in tax title right now. Imagine if we were able to move on all of those. Now, we're very sensitive to Stoughton citizens that are in distress, and we're always willing to work through payment plans to help those people through. But not everybody who's in tax title and hasn't paid that tax title is in financial distress. And the town meeting was generous and gave us that $30,000 for a consultant to make progress on that. That's one of the things we are going to measure ourselves at the end of FY24. These are all items that we are going to measure ourselves against our performance in public this time next year. Senior housing. Mr. Cavey has made it very clear that if we're the government we pretend to be, we've got to build affordable senior housing for the seniors in the town of Stoughton. And we are now in the process of negotiating with a developer that is going to build, Mark, 210 units in Stoughton on property they own. It was at Steve's direction that we pursue it. We gave them a green light and all the cooperation they need to build in Stoughton. It is a nonprofit that will pay property taxes for the building, and Stoughton residents get preference on residency above everyone else. That was one of the conditions we built into it. So Stoughton residents who are seniors will have a beautiful place to live that are for Stoughton residents. They'll be living with their neighbors. I've already spoken about Regional 911, and we'll be posting tomorrow. We just agreed on the technical presentation where the management of Regional 911 are coming to this great hall. All are going to be invited so they can present what the features and the benefits are of this service. It's part of the Holbrook government. Holbrook selectmen voted in support of accepting Stoughton into Regional 911. I'm not going to sign that acceptance until we have a public hearing and inform people of the features and benefits of that program. Trash and recycling transfer station. We talked about this in the hearings. I won't spend much time. By the end of the year, Mark and I hope to identify our site, to develop the engineering and layout of the facility, and to seek town meeting support to build a transfer station. It's the only way available to us to lower our costs and to manage our rubbish, solid waste, and recyclables in an efficient way. As I said during the hearings, within 2 or 3 years, Massachusetts waste is going to be shipped out of Massachusetts. There'll be no end disposal site. So to the degree that we have a transfer station, we're going to be able to manage that, what will be a huge increased cost, effectively through good consolidation, waste minimization, and source reduction. I've spoken about number 13. I've spoken about professional development, number 12. I've spoken about the community center, number 14. Townwide beautification. I know you may find this hokey coming from me. If I were to rank these, this is number 1. I've come to love Stoughton. I think Stoughton people are wonderful, starting with the people in this room. But we do not do justice to our community with the way we treat the streets of Stoughton, Massachusetts. So not only are we separating rubbish from solid waste and requiring that people, as they put the rubbish on their doorstep, that it be in a bag of their choice, any bag they want, or in a drum. We've got to stop the wind from blowing everything around the town. We've got to hold people accountable who are illegally dumping. With Mr. Gito's leadership, we've got a plan for beautifying key parts of the town, parks around the train station, so people know what we're intending to do there. We're going to pick up the nip bottles and the syringes and everything else. We're going to do plantings. We're going to maintain them. We're going to have a community all of us can be more and more proud of every year. Now, that also means that we, our DPW, and where is Paul? Oh, there he is. Paul's in complete agreement on this, and I want the DPW employees to hear this. That means when our truck leave the barn, they're clean. Saturday morning, Scott and I were writing the date on the side of the rubbish trucks in the soot and dirt and filth. Paul has created a great facility for storing and washing heavy equipment. I put my name on the dust on top of it. That's all going to change. If we're going to expect the citizens of the town to cooperate and support us, if you see something, call us, tell us, then we have to do our part and look the role. And law enforcement has to work with us and catch the people who are illegally dumping. We just hired a zoning code enforcement officer under Mark's leadership. That person's spending the first 3 months driving around the town of Stoughton focused on beautification. This is our year. We've got our birthday coming up in a few years. We've got to start beautifying the town now. Next page is number 15, transparency and communication. Through our negotiations with SMAC, and it wasn't difficult, they wanted the same thing we want. As you'll note, we replayed the solid waste hearing twice a day for 2 weeks. That had never been done before. Had never been done before. And people became informed. People came out to the rate hearing. People gave input. That input was valuable. That input was incorporated into the plan that we're presenting to the board next Tuesday. And I've met with each of them individually, not collectively, not together, not to get their vote, not to poll, but to get their input so that we hit the mark as we present a motion next Tuesday night. And it's what the citizens have asked for, and the staff, the people who work on solid waste, are delighted to do it. And moving forward, this committee is going to continue to meet monthly. We're going to send invitations to every town meeting representative to join us, the Energy Committee, the Sustainability Committee to join us, and we're going to evaluate all of the ideas that we're not adopting in this recommendation. Ideas like drums, ideas like stickers, ideas, don't shoot me, for private pay. I don't think private pay will ever pass in this town, but because the citizens said, we want to know what that cost, it's our job to evaluate it and give that information. So that's what we're doing. Transparency and communication, good, bad, and ugly. Facts are friendly. When we mess up, you're going to hear about it. You'll also hear about our plan. You'll hear the facts, you'll hear about our plan. Stoughton residents deserve information. Now, we can't help it if Stoughton people don't watch SMAC, don't look at the website, don't come to meetings, don't go to town meeting, don't read the newspaper, don't look at the postings, don't look at Facebook, and then blame us for not communicating. Happens all the time. All the time we get beat up. That's okay. We've got broad shoulders and we're going to keep pitching, keep communicating, keep sharing information, keep educating on real issues facing our town. We're never going to be discouraged by those who say you don't communicate with us. That's our commitment. Town infrastructure. We've got 100-year-old buildings in this town. We've got assets that are broken. Buildings aren't ADA approved. Don't have any handicap entrance or exit sites. There are lots of things that need to be maintained and invested in, repaired, and fixed. We're not giving up on our underground infrastructure. We've just got started. That is our biggest risk. Without substantial reserves, with a 100-year-old underground infrastructure, which is not covered by insurance, if we had a major catastrophic breach in downtown Stoughton, and I've only got $7 million hypothetically in our account, we're in trouble. And if we don't build our reserves and our bond rating goes down and our cost of borrowing goes up, we're in even more trouble. So I know that those aren't, as I would say, sexy projects, but doing roads and doing the infrastructure has got to be a continuous investment by the town. Collaboration with the school system. I'm going to say the quiet part out loud. I was told in coming here, you better agree with the school system or you'll be gone in 3 months. And I found that to be true with the former school committee and the former superintendent. It was absolutely true. I got a call the first day getting screamed at and threatened. It's a new game in town. We've got an extraordinary, proven superintendent who's a Stoughton resident. We've got a new board that is looking forward to working collaboratively. The superintendent has reached out a dozen times to work collaboratively. So we now have department heads who are solid, 2 great chiefs, a superintendent that cares and loves this town, a school committee that is excited about moving forward, a town that is excited about working with the school committee. This is a unique time, and that's why I put it as one of my primary objectives, to build a wonderful relationship with the school committee and with this new superintendent. And we've already begun that process. So, folks, those are the priorities, the objectives, if you will, for fiscal year 24. We're in the 3rd week of the fiscal year. We're already working on many of these priorities. I think where the chair lady would like to bring this next is a discussion about, as the policymakers, what our board sees as their priorities of these objectives or even different objectives. And then we will convene next meeting to talk about what we need to do, that's action planning, what we need to do to make sure as a team we accomplish all the objectives, but most importantly, the select board's 3 priorities. Thank you for all you do. I am so proud to serve as your town manager. I love coming to work every day. The people in this building, the people around town make it worth it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Deborah.
And thank you so very much, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for your list, for your clarity, for your insight. But before we break...
I did miss the last page.
Oh, you missed the last page?
May I just speak to 2 of them?
No, we're we're on a short time, but they can read it for a minute, but I
I'd
just
ask you
wanted to
pay-
be sure.
Pay attention to number 18. That is a top priority. Thank you.
I wanted to be sure, because I'm really monitoring the time. I'm a timekeeper tonight and a note taker. But I wanted everyone to know that I have observed and I know that our select board are strategists. Scott Carrera, Vice Chair Cavey, Joseph McCrisky, Lou Gito, Deborah Roberts. We are strategists. We want to see the progress in the town of Stoughton. And all of you, I haven't worked individually with all of you, but I'm sure you are too. You have ideas, things that would make Stoughton better. I know we've been talking a long time about the center of town, the center of Stoughton, but is that really the center of Stoughton, or should it be, or could it be somewhere else because of the way the streets run and the way the traffic? And have we done studies? Yes, we have. Do we have anecdotal information? Yes, we do. But you know, is it now the time to start thinking about that and planning for that? We have a planner now, and we have our master plan, and we can take steps toward completing that master plan, those ideas. I know that we have the armory that we've talked about a lot, and Scott brings that up a lot, and so does Mr. McCrisky, Joe McCrisky. But let's break and start our discussions, and this is roundtable discussion on objectives. I will call your attention or call it back, this meeting back to order, let's say 8:45, so we can start writing on the whiteboard, you know, what each table believes should be our priorities. So we just want a list, and then on August 1st, we will kind of drill down and have our top three. So that will be our process. Here we go. Hello, hello. Hello, everyone. I hope you had a beneficial discussion, and you're ready to, I can't hold this and actually write at the same time, but are you ready to start the debrief process? So I'll just point to a table, and I'll start with the one that's closest to me, and then we'll just do a round robin, and then I'll write them down. And then I can put this away, and I don't need to hold it. So that's that.
Every once in a while.
Okay.
Oh, you got it.
I got it. Okay. We'll call this table number one. Table number one.
The new guy got the short straw on this table.
You want to say your name? And-
I'm Bill Roth. I'm the town planner.
Hello there.
So,
Okay.
so we looked at three different objectives that you requested, but we kind of had a different take on it. The first one was policy manual, but we also looked on the same sheet, and we felt that a lot of synergy. But the stabilization fund, well, that's really a policy that goes into how you're going to do the thing. Utilize under equipment, well, that's really a policy on how you're going to replace equipment, get rid of equipment. Comprehensive financial policies go into that, and then centralized purchasing is really policy. So the policy manual really takes 1, 2, 4, 6, and 5, in many ways. It touches those. So the policy manual, I think we thought of it as a much broader category that included several things on the first sheet.
That's pretty insightful.
So,
Policy manual.
yeah. And then the second one we looked at was the townwide beautification, but we then also looked at it. It's not just the trash. It's the public buildings, the spaces, the parks, possible street tree program, and such. So it really touches. And then also, in the private sector, it's like our new Stoughton Center zoning. When these buildings come in, they have to have certain design. So that's our zoning, and changing the development will also, is a beautification. So it's more than just the trash. It extends to a lot of the different things, but maintaining, our building spaces, parks. And then we talked about the third one would be town infrastructure, but some of those things also fold in. Also, it's just not water, sewer, and roads. It's our public buildings. It's our parks. We feel that the transfer station is really a public asset and a public infrastructure if we can get it. And then the other thing is looking at potential future town infrastructure that can also serve as an economic development. So some of this is to better the town, such as a parking structure downtown to assist in the redevelopment of downtown. And that would be most likely a public infrastructure. So it's existing plus future public infrastructure. So those are the three, but we felt that they tied in, some of the other things.
Well done, guys. I'd like to
It's all Phil, by the way. He wanted water and sewer.
I would say that's great work considering you don't have a lady at the table.
Okay. Let's call this table number 2. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Bill Rowe. I'm the town accountant. I'm here with Paula Newt, our treasurer collector, Stephanie Carrara, our town clerk, Sharon Johnson from Veteran Services, and Mary Jane Martin, our internal auditor. So basically, mostly financial people here, so naturally number 2 was our highest priority.
Okay.
And as Bill Roth said, number 5, policy manual, very important, not for just for finances, but for all procedures and policies. And then number 4, of course, the stabilization fund. That's always important. We need to try to build that up. And I think there's a consensus among the select board and school committee and finance committee that we need to do that. So, and I think we would add to this, which is not on the list, employee morale, team building in all departments, and mutual respect between departments, boards, committees, and staff. We hear a lot of that at department head meetings. Sometimes there's a gotcha mentality with committees and boards, and it can be embarrassing, sometimes humiliating. So I think we would add those to the objectives. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. We'll call this table number 3.
Table number 3 in the center here, we have Fran Brutinetti from Procurement, Janice VNA, and a list of other things that she takes care of, Deanna Chatsko from HR, and myself, Chief McNamara, and our lists are... Our list, I guess we would put it under the exiting civil service, but it's a little bit, it's more broad than that. It is actually staffing for the entire town with recruitment, retention, and actually competitive salaries compared to other communities that are equal to the town of Stoughton. Stabilization fund we found is number 2. And the water meters is number 3 for our table. Yeah.
So I'm going to put that number 6 as staffing for the entire town. That includes civil service, recruiting, and competitive salaries. Did that capture that? Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move over to Mr. Gito, Mr. Vice Chair Cavey, and Ms. McCarthy.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We're a small group, but we had some good ideas. The first one, we had, one of the ones on our list was beautification, but we had talked about the fact that there are a lot of small unusable parcels in town and also some town-owned land that we thought we could actually let residents or community organizations, maybe the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts groups like that, do plantings on, and then also some fruit trees maybe in the area. And we have the beautification committee that is already established in the downtown, and they might be able to help take the lead on that to help the other community groups or the residents that want to do things like that. So it's something that would not be too costly. And then another one we talked about that actually involves senior housing is the fact that we need to establish priority development sites, and on those sites we allow for expedited permitting. And I know that we mentioned the need to develop housing, but those priority development sites would be housing and possibly businesses too, because the problem has been that there's a lot of assistance out there, but we never know where the site is. Like we know we not want housing, we know we might want more businesses, we need to know exactly where it's going to be located so that we can go to the state, go to mass development or neighbor work, something like that, and say, here's our site, here's where we want our housing, or here's where we want our businesses, and have a design. So it's important to have the priority development sites. And then we do support the cultural center in the downtown as one of the top priorities, because we want the downtown to be a live, work, play destination. So we do need something to attract the residents and have activities for them to perform. And we own the depot, so that's a place to start, but we don't want to rule out pursuing other sites in the downtown in the future to have other types of activities. And then we also had thought that infrastructure is very important, because you need that in order to accomplish many of the other tasks on the list.
Can you elaborate on the combination of senior housing with businesses?
I think you have a similar obstacle with both of them. Maybe that's something for the next meeting, but it's having the location, working with the property owners and knowing who's willing to have these types of things built on their property or who's willing to sell, so that a developer can build the housing at a certain area or can build businesses. So it's related to housing. We just need more specifics as to where we're going to put it, what it's going to look like, and work towards getting it designed so we can get financial assistance.
All right, got it. How about the next?
Thank you. So we had a real difficult time, so we actually took a different approach to this. We looked at the first page where within 6 months we got 21 items done, or the town did, right? And I think we might be selling ourselves a little bit short saying 3. And I understand the select board's request here, but as we played this out and looked at each one, we all went down and put one of 3 things to each one of them. It's either financial, operational, or infrastructure/planning, right? And they all overlap. And I think one affects the other, affects the other, affects the other. And then we put it basically it all under an umbrella of our communication and transparency, whether we're communicating within departments or communicating to the residents. It's always been an obstacle. So it's kind of like that umbrella of communication, transparency, but then financial, operational, and then infrastructure/planning. Just speaking on my own or for the fire department, if we do have water leaks in town, that makes a huge issue with my operations on the fire ground, my gallon flow, and that we can and can't do. How does that affect the town? We have a hole in the center as a result of a Chengdu fire back in 2009. So building infrastructure, looking at each one of these, and some relate to town and some relate to town-wide, and sometimes they layer over. I think it'd be reasonable to look at all of these, put them under those categories, and they're all in different phases. Fire station's being built. We're in that process. We want to build a police station, right? That's in a whole different other phase. But I think if we put all that together, I don't think there's a reason why we can't accomplish every single one of these. It's just having that, the support, teamwork, and everything else that it takes to get this done. I think that as we look at these, we can be selfish and say, yes, fire station, regional 911, or whatever, but how's it going to affect the town? We can't do anything without money. We can't build off a lack of infrastructure, and then we just can't operate altogether. So I think if you give us this time, we can take that, group them, put them in, and I don't know whether you necessarily have to prioritize this, because I think as you kind of chip away at one, the others will follow.
Thank you.
The end.
And our table, we had economic development plan, economic development plan that we can act on. Number 2 was fiscal management, strengthen our balance sheet. Number 3 was police department relocation, plan for it. Number 4 is centralized purchasing. And number 5 is minority-owned business set-asides. So that goes along with the centralized purchasing. I think that's like a sub-bullet. Anything else, team? All right. So I'll put those 5 categories on this list. If you want to take a snapshot of it or write it down and think about it a little bit more, and then we'll reconvene on Tuesday, August 1st. Yeah, Tom. I thought about that as soon as I said it. All right. So it looks like it is 9 o'clock. Can I get a motion? Is there any other business we need to discuss tonight? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn from the select board meeting?
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time.